Thank you for listening to the Golden Hour Drip podcast with me, Logan Lee Miller. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Golden Hour Drip podcast. I'm your host, Logan Lee Miller. And for the last probably 4 to 5 months, my laptop has been completely busted. I don't know what I did. It's probably from traveling with it in the vehicle, while Garrett's driving, I'm in the passenger seat. And I when I try and close the, I went to close the laptop a couple months ago, and when I did, it cracked, and not the screen, but the plastic parts, and then a screw with a little bit of plastic fell out of it. And I was okay, it's wrecked, but I haven't had time to go to the computer store, and I'm actually not too sure on where to get a computer repaired at. I haven't wrecked my computer since college, so I'm really unsure where I'm supposed to take it. I want someone trusted, but also the problem is I need my computer every single day, and I need to get pre-record a podcast because that's how I edit my podcast. It's also how I edit my vlogs, and if I don't have my computer, I'm not sure how long it's gonna take to repair it. So now I'm looking at computers and I'm thinking, should I buy a computer? Should I not buy a computer? And this past weekend I went to Scottsdale, Arizona. So much fun. We'll get into it. But I needed to take my laptop. I had the intention to edit a little bit on my computer, but the thing is, my computer is so bent. It's not working right now. To close and shut easily. There's a little part where it should rotate. The screw that connects it to the joint has fallen out and broken, so it doesn't close very nicely. And it took me probably 6 minutes trying to align the broken plastic parts together so that I could fold it on top of it. And then I got to the airport early, and I was thinking, at the airport I'll open it. And then I was worried, what if I can't get my computer shut at the airport, if we start boarding or something, and I'm struggling with it. And then when I was in the hotel, I was thinking, maybe I'll pull it out here. But I was kind of exhausted from the events, and flying and travel always just takes it out of me. And so I didn't actually open up the laptop. And I traveled with it, and it made one of my carry-on bags super, super heavy. The entire time I was thinking, oh my gosh, what an inconvenience this computer is being right now. And I'm trying to weigh the options of, okay, do I replace the computer even though there's nothing wrong with the screen? It still is very functional, but I can't take it anywhere. It has to stay at my computer desk open. Or do I keep it how it is? What should I do? And for my August goals, I'm focused on a couple things, and one being I post a vlog every single Saturday. And because I was traveling and I didn't have a vlog, I had the footage, I just didn't make the time to edit it. And I thought, I'll edit it on the plane, not realizing and forgetting that my computer was busted, and then not doing it at the hotel. So it's one of the things where you're thinking about your goals and you're trying to remain consistent. Sometimes you have to alleviate the things that might be so hard to get, the hurdles, right? If you are wanting to start a goal, you need to make it as achievable and convenient as possible, especially when you're starting a habit. My little sister is reading Atomic Habits. I read it a couple years ago, and it reminded me of, if you're wanting to watch less TV, put your TV in a closet so that every time you want to watch it, you have to pull it out, hook it up, and it's inconvenient. If you want to start a healthy habit, make it to where it ties into one of your other habits. So if it's drinking more water, you have a water cup next to your desk. you have one next to your bed and maybe in the kitchen, right? Like little water stations. If you're wanting to get your steps in, you don't keep the treadmill in the closet in the back room, like shut and locked away. No, you bring it out and you try and make it as convenient as possible. And I realized I'm like, I am not making it convenient for myself to upload vlogs on Saturday if I can't travel with my computer. And I know I have upcoming travel at the end of August, beginning of September, and I'm really excited for it. But I'm like, dang, like I need to figure out how to fix my computer before then, because if I do not get it fixed, like it's going to be inconvenient, and then I cannot achieve or like be like hyper fixated on my goals and making them happen. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So if you are waiting for the vlog on my personal account, Logan Lee Miller, I'm hoping it comes out on Monday or Tuesday, because it was just a whirlwind of a weekend. And honestly, like the week beforehand was pretty busy as well. I was really focused on getting my like things together beforehand. I am trying to practice being like planning ahead. And you would think, because I am very particular, that I would plan my like outfits and suitcase beforehand, but I actually really struggle with packing. It's something that I like throw all my clothes in the night before or right before we're supposed to leave if it's a traveling by vehicle. And I honestly hate that habit of myself where I don't take the time to allot to put my clothes in their little packing cubes and loading up my suitcase and having it to go like at least a day in advance. I have been doing it like the night before and really stressing out about it. And when I say the night before, it could be like 9 o'clock at night and I'm supposed to wake up at 3 to get to the airport by 5, you know, like all the things of trying to like do too much. And I've been working on pre-planning a little bit, and this week wasn't perfect by any means, but I did talk myself out of like bringing my podcast equipment, because it was a conference that I had seen like girls and met them from last year. And so I was really hoping maybe we could sit down and record together if I had the time, but also like my flight was delayed. And of course I didn't know that my flight was going to be delayed, but I was thinking, okay, this year you're getting there later than you did last year. Last year I got there at like 7 a.m. and this year I got there at like 2 p.m. their time. No, 3 p.m. It's 3 p.m. their time. And I was like, that gives proper amounts of time and I'll get to my hotel, get ready for the event. But I really didn't have like downtime to explore Scottsdale like I did last year, which was a little sad. It just wasn't in the cards. I had too much going on, but I was glad that I talked myself out of like packing all of my podcast equipment and having it in my head that I was going to try and podcast while I was there. Instead, like I just kept it really, really simple and kept my focus of like connection and absorption of like the speakers and everyone there. So I was really, really happy about that. So this week I have just been trying to make sure that my ducks were in a row, especially when I come back. Like I feel like sometimes you need a vacation from your vacation where you are go and you plan for this, right? Like you have the intentions, you book the hotel, you book the flight, and you are planning for this event, preparing. You finally go, it's a whirlwind, and then you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have whiplash from having so much fun at the event or vacation or whatever. And then you kind of like get hit with reality. You get hit back with what you're doing day to day. And maybe there's a couple problems or situations that you left on Friday. You're like, oh, I will see you Monday. And then Monday comes around. You're like, oh my gosh, like I actually have to do this. Like I left this for future Logan. And guess what? Today is the day where I'm supposed to like focus in on this plan. So I was trying really hard to set myself up for success and make sure that like my office was clean and the bathrooms had been cleaned before I left, or all of my laundry was done. So when I come back, all I have to do is like my suitcase of laundry, and just making it super, super simple. I also did not overpack this time. And I was trying to practice so hard to pack the night before. I did not pack the night before. I ended up packing day of, which is so annoying. I hate myself for doing that, but I didn't overpack and it was like super quick. But I wish I would have packed like the night before or the day before, just to have it done so I wasn't focused on it and stressed out about it. But I did go shopping for like my event outfit beforehand. There's been some like vacations or trips that I've gone on that I've literally shopped for my outfit the day before or the day of, like right before going to the airport, just leaving like a little bit early and trying to find something for the event. So I was really glad that I picked something up last week from my friend's Revival Clothing Boutique. So I had that all together, and I did kind of know what I wanted to pack, but I did not overpack. I was so intentional. I had my outfits. I was like, okay, this is what you're going to wear there. This is what you're going to wear out. And that also really, really does help, because I don't want to be like lugging things back and forth, especially if I'm not going to utilize them. Like my podcast equipment, if I would have packed them, like taken my bigger suitcase, packed my podcast equipment, it would have been more of a hassle to like try and do that than to just be so present. And I'm finding as I'm growing and maturing that simplifying a routine or simplifying a to-do list can be so impactful, because you're more present. You're not worried about what's next on the itinerary. You're instead focused on what are we doing right now, and how can I fully experience this to its capacity? So I was really excited that I didn't get everything done that I wanted to before I left, but I was intentional in the steps for preparing for the trip. And my house, when I got home, it was, it's nice and neat. My office was nice. And there's so many things that like Garrett did throughout the week that was really helpful as well. And I know that like this week won't be as hard because of that. Also, since I didn't overpack, I didn't have like more clothes that needed to be washed, because if you have more outfits than you're actually like planning on doing, and you pull them all out and you're like, should I wear this? Should I wear this? Or you wear it for a little bit while you're getting ready in your hotel room, and then you end up like swapping to something else. I only had like a load of laundry to do instead of multiple loads. So that was really, really nice. But for my peak and pit of the week, let's get into it. I'm going to start with my pit, because the peak I'm going to talk about for the entirety of this podcast, which is my solo travel trip to Scottsdale. But my pit of the week, oh my gosh, like this shouldn't even be that big of a deal, but it really was just like so annoying. I was booking my flights and I wanted to like have the most affordable flight option, right? Like I wanted it to be spending my money on the experience and not necessarily like on this flight ticket. So the flight there was at 2 p.m., which was good. Like that gave me plenty of time. I wasn't rushed. I wasn't super tired getting to the hotel on that day, because it was like part of my normal routine. I woke up at a normal time. I went to the airport, and with the time difference, Arizona is 2 hours behind. So when I got there, it was 3 and I had left at 2 KC time. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. But when I left on Sunday, I needed my Uber. And see, this is like where the pre-planning comes out, because I knew I had an early flight. My flight was departing at 6 a.m. Last year I had an early flight as well, but the difference was last year I rented a vehicle and I decided that I wasn't really driving anywhere last year and I would definitely like prefer to just have an Uber to like get me from one spot to the other instead of like having a rental car that I really didn't utilize as much. So I was like, perfect, an Uber. Now, last August, I was in, not August, it was July, can't even remember when Adriana's bachelorette in Nashville was, but we had different flight times coming out of Nashville. And me and one of her bridesmaids had an earlier flight than everybody else. So we had to be like up and at 'em. And we ended up like pre-booking an Uber the night before to come and pick us up like super early in the morning so that we could make it on our flight on time. So I had that knowledge of that you could pre-book an Uber, which was nice because a few days before I went, I checked on the Uber app, I downloaded it, and I reserved a ride to pick me up on Sunday because I needed the Uber to pick me up at 3 a.m. And what really stresses me out is that is a hard time for an Uber, right? Like that's not a prime time. That's not a peak time. And I was nervous that I wouldn't find a ride to the airport and then I'd miss my flight, right? So I pre-booked it on like Wednesday night for the following Sunday and I booked it 3 a.m. perfect, amazing, reserved it, and it was like pretty affordable. It was only like $30 and I was like, wow, like that's really, really nice for being 3 a.m. The only problem was I was so petrified that I was going to miss the Uber call. I set so many alarms on my phone. I was like, no. So if he was picking me up at 3, I said 2:30, 2:35, 2:40, 2:45, 2:50, right? Like I did a couple alarms with different sounds and I was so worried that like I wouldn't hear the alarm or it wouldn't go off like for some reason. And so I want to say because I was like going to bed and I was kind of anxious about it and I was thinking, oh my gosh, like I need to make sure that I'm going to be able to go. And I was thinking about it like really deeply. I ended up waking up at 2:00. So a whole hour before the Uber was going to come, which was great. Like at least I was up. My suitcase and everything was packed the night before. I will say I am so good at that. Like I will stay up a little bit early because I find that it's easier for me to stay up and pack my suitcase and then wake up in the morning ready to go than it is to have it all like strewn about and wake up, feel rushed that I have to like stuff my suitcase before like either being picked up for the airport or like driving to the airport. So I always pack my bag the night before. It also helps me understand, like, did I get anything from the trip? Like, am I going to have to check a bag? Like, should I allot for the earlier time to make sure that my bag can be checked instead of just taking it as a carry-on? And I woke up at 2, petrified. I was like, oh, did I miss it? Is it actually the pickup at 3? And the Uber ended up being perfect. He was so nice. He got there like 10 minutes early and I was watching on the app. And so I saw it was like 12 minutes early. It was like 2:49, 2:48 or something like that. And I had seen it was like driver's on the way, 8 minutes away. But the pickup time was at 3. So I just needed to be like in his vehicle by 3:05. I went downstairs. I checked out of my hotel room. I rolled my roller cart out to the little front of the hotel and he came and he was early. Now, I don't know why. I have had this so many times and I did add a photo of myself. Like I added a photo of myself back in like 2022. Was when I first like downloaded Uber. I have like a profile pic, okay? And I'm clearly a girl in the photo. But I went out and he like got out of his vehicle. I opened the side door. He goes, or he like came around. I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember because I was so tired. But he came around. He's like, do you know Logan? I said, I am Logan. He goes, you know Logan? I said, I am Logan. He's like, oh, you're Logan. I was like, yes. Like, oh, it's so annoying. Like, I get it. Like, you would just assume, but I have a profile pic, and that he was not the only one. I was like, yep, that's me. And I called him by his name after he questioned me like the second time. I was like, yep, you're blank. I can't remember his name now. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then the night before, or like the day before or something, I don't know, someone was like, oh, I don't know why, I was just expecting a boy. I was like, I know you know why you're expecting a boy, because like Logan is a predominantly male name. Like, I get it. Okay. And on one hand, it's good because I, like, as a solo female traveler, when you're going, like, I don't necessarily want them to know, one, that I'm traveling alone, two, that I'm a girl, right? So obviously when the Uber picks me up, they realize like I am a girl. But my profile picture shows that I'm a girl. I just get like so annoyed when they're like, oh, I was expecting a boy. Like, why? Like, keep that thought to yourself. Like, keep that in your own head. Nobody needs to know that. That's the same of saying like, oh, I thought you'd be taller. Like, I thought you'd be skinnier. Like, I don't know. I thought you'd be a boy. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. And it shouldn't irk me as much as it does, but because I have a profile picture on there and they always like question, like, instead of, I don't know. And also like this morning, it kind of weirded me out as well. I was like, my pen is, and I gave him my pen. He's like, oh, did you set that up? Or he's like, that's weird. Did you set that up? I was like, no, Uber sets up the pins. But then I was petrified. I was like, excuse me, sir, why are you questioning me about like putting the pin in your phone? That's how to alert the app that I met you. You picked me up. You were the last person to see me alive. No, like it seriously is like a little bit of a concern when I do go, and I try to be as safe as possible. I always fit the area, and it did make me feel better that I've been there before. Like, I came last year, so I knew like the area, I knew what to expect, but I'm thinking maybe I just bite the bullet and get a rental car next year again. But the liability I'm worried about, right? Like, you can get insurance, but I hate being responsible for a vehicle in a parking lot or having it, but it is really, really convenient for just like driving around. Also, you have to make sure that you're like bringing it back with fuel in it and gas prices and all the things. Like, the responsibility of having a vehicle is obviously like, it's more than just like hopping in an Uber, right? So I get all that, but I was like, that was my pet. I had to wake up really early, and my Ubers kept thinking I was a boy, which is so surface level, and that's fine. But I don't know. Maybe my profile doesn't pop up. Maybe it's just like my name or whatever, and that's cool. That's fine. But like, just give it to yourself. Like, you don't have to say, oh my gosh, like, I thought you were a boy. And I've gotten in my entire life, like, seriously, I've always had like questions about like my name and things like that. But something really, really sweet happened this past weekend. I was talking to a girl, and the conference had just ended. Everyone was like scattering to their locations, or like if they wanted to talk afterwards or any of the things. And I wanted to go journal. I wanted to like spend some intentional time just like thinking and writing out about like the conference and everything that I had thought, like, learned, or even like really amazing questions that some of the speakers asked. I was like, man, like, I need time to just like reflect. And it was a really beautiful area. There's like rocks and landscape and cactuses, and then of course like these beautiful mountain ridges at the resort. And so I started walking by myself, because sometimes like you need time to reflect on your own. Like, I love to chat. I love to talk to people about like my goals and my dreams and my desires and things. But sometimes you have to process things on your own. You need to like sit down and write out, you know, what you're thinking, or like kind of just like unwinding or detangling some of the thoughts that are in your brain. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like walk over here, spend some time by myself. And as I was walking, this one girl said, hey, like, are you in a hurry to get home? I was like, no, like, what's up? And she's like, would you mind taking my photo? And it was kind of like by the entrance. And I was like, yes, I would love to take your photo, but this location is not as good. This morning I took photos over by like the fountains and the bridge, and it's much beautifuler over there. I think we should walk over. And so we were walking, and we ended up being stopped by like a couple other people who had went to the event, and so we chatted, and it was really, really good. And we get over there, and of course, like, I had never met this girl before. And that's what I love about the Powerhouse woman community, because it is very much like that. Like, if you need something, you can ask any of them, and everybody is just like so ready to help and be of service. And so like we were walking over, and she was telling me a little bit about herself, and some of the people that had stopped us, they're like, oh, and one of the gals I met last year, her name is Stephanie. She is expecting her first little baby, and I forgot. I think she's 30 weeks along, and she was talking to the girl that I was with, who I just met, and I'm about to go take her photo, right? Girlhood. And she was like, yep. And the girl, and I'm trying to think of her name, and I cannot believe that I cannot remember it right now. I'm blaming it on the lack of sleep, but and she was like, yeah, it's been a crazy day. Like, my little baby this morning, she has a toddler. He, hit his head. They had to go to the ER. He's fine. Everything's good. And Stephanie, the other girl who is 30 weeks, is like, yeah, that's really crazy. I'm not looking forward to that. And then said, next year you'll have two. And I was like, oh, like, the girl that I'm with, like, she's like very early expecting. She's like, I think she said 13, 15 weeks or something like that. I was like, oh, awesome. Like, very early. And this girl is like, her frame is like pretty small, and she's pretty early, and I never ever look at anybody's abdomen that's not like part of my like core. I don't know. Like, I always try to just be like very accepting of other people's bodies and never think, oh, are they pregnant? Are they not pregnant? Like, I think that's the kind thing to do. So even like Stephanie, who's 30 weeks, until she said something, then I say something. I don't know. I want everyone to feel comfortable sharing in their pregnancy. And I know that can be like an awkward thing of like not knowing what if they're pregnant or not, whatever. Anyways, that doesn't matter. So this girl was like, yeah, next year you'll have two. And she's like, yeah, that'll be so exciting. We'll see. Her little boy was, how he'll like having a little sister. And then we said our goodbyes, and me and this girl like kept walking to the place that like had the better photo view. And I was like, oh, so you're expecting? And she's like, yes, like, we just found out it's a girl. I'm very early. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Congratulations. And she's like, yeah, we're thinking about naming her Navy. Maybe it's good that I didn't say her first name, because I don't want anybody to steal anybody's baby name, right? Like, and I was like, oh, Navy is really cute. That's a cute little girl name. And we ended up, I took some of her photos, for, Instagram or whatever. And we were talking, and, she's like, well, what are your socials? I'll like follow you. And it's like, perfect. Amazing. So I pull out my phone. I said, my socials are Logan Lee Miller everywhere. And then I got into on like why I kept my maiden name with like my full name. And I shared with her, I was like, yeah, and official, like, my first name is Taylor. And when I was getting married, I didn't want my like documents to read Taylor Miller, because like, who is that? That's not me. Like, I've always been called Logan, and I know it would have been Taylor Logan Miller, but in my opinion, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm losing too much of like my name, because it would be Taylor Miller on all my documents. And so I was like, yeah, my parents have always called me Logan. And she was like, wow, that's really pretty. And she said that she liked my handle or whatever. We talked about her handle, and I was like, yeah, it's crazy like how important like a name is, right? And she was talking about how when she got married, she was like looking for the specific username, and she ended up actually like purchasing the username from someone else. Hey, I hope that you're enjoying today's podcast episode. Just a quick interruption to let you know that the Golden Hour Drip podcast has a monthly newsletter. You'll find podcast updates, upcoming events and information, and bonus content. If you haven't already, click the link in the show notes and join today. Now, back to the show. And while I know that technically I believe this is against Instagram guidelines, I was thinking about this back in like 2020 when Garrett and I were about to get married. That's the entirety of why I kept my maiden name of Logan Lee Miller, because the handle was available, and I was so tired of having Logan Lee 21 because that's what I've always had. And so I completely understand. Anyway, so she had it like her name, and so we were talking about that and everything, and she was like, and I forget, I was talking about my podcast name. And if you don't know, the OGs will, but Golden Hour Drip was created my senior year of college. And it was kind of like, it was a tough year. Okay. And a couple years after that, it was tough. I think it was tough for us all. And, during that time, whenever you're stressed, whenever you're anxious or worried or having panic attacks like I was, people always say deep breathing and go to your happy place. And I was like, that is so dumb. How can I even think about my happy place when I am so feel like my body is under attack? How can I think about my happy place when I've never practiced grounding before? I never experienced anything like this, and definitely was spiraling, right? And with that, I was like, okay, actually, let's take a deep breath. Let's try and figure it out, right? You hear people say it all the time, find your happy place, go to your happy place. I'm like, okay, all right, let's try it out. And I was thinking back to happy memories, because that was an exercise that I did as well, where when I was having a panic attack, I would be thinking of a happy memory to try and push out the anxious thought. So I would think about that happy memory, and sometimes I would journal about it. Sometimes I would write the scene in my from my head to my journal, and just completely envelop myself into that memory or the visual or whatever you want to call it. And so one of some of my happiest memories happened on my grandpa's farm, and they're on top of a hill, and it kind of slopes down into a valley or a little rolling hill at the bottom. It's small. It's Missouri. It's not Arizona or anything. And when the sun goes down, it gives the perfect view. It's so beautiful, and it's golden hour. And during this time, Instagram was pretty big, and I remember taking so many photos, and all of my sorority sisters, we would crave this golden hour moment, right? And also blue hour was a thing at that time, so it'd be blue cast in your bedroom. It was very aesthetic. Okay. And I was thinking, man, my grandparents' farm is one of my happiest places, and golden hour is something everybody chases after, especially during this time, like I said, with Instagram. And I wanted to chase after those happy memories. I wanted to chase after the happy feeling, the golden hour of my life, the happy moments in my life. And I just remember thinking golden hour drip, the sun kind of drips over everything. And I couldn't do just golden hour because people would confuse it with photography and all of those things. So that's how the podcast name was born, of Golden Hour Drip. And I was telling her this, and then I had to laugh, and I was like, actually, I love also the name Goldie. Goldie as like a baby name. I shared that with her. I was like, actually, and Garrett, my husband said no for Goldie as a baby name, and she laughed and she's like, actually, one of my friends, she has a child named Goldie. I was like, see, it is so cute, but now there's no way since I have a podcast named Golden Hour Trip, like that would be too far. And she's like, actually, now what was her baby's name? Navy. Sorry, I was thinking Ivory for a moment. So she's like, actually, Navy Logan sounds so cute. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, I'm gonna write it down as a middle name. And I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, that's your hormones talking. Like, you are gonna, like, don't worry, you'll have your a centering moment, like Logan as a middle name. Like I was just laughing, obviously, because it's my name, and the baby would be named after me. We were joking, we were having like a good time, but honestly, like, it made me feel really, really good. She was like, yeah, I actually love the name Logan. I'll put it in my notes app. She's gonna talk to her husband about it. I was like, oh, you were so cute. Like, that was so sweet, especially because I had like all this with like Logan's a boy name and like the Ubers and all of that stuff. And I was like, man, that was like so sweet. And she doesn't know like how much it impacted me, but I was like, like Logan as a middle name, so cute. Honestly, if she does, be a cute little baby, right? Like, named after me. No, it is so wild to think about like baby names and like how people like curate for their children and like what family names they pick or what they like. And we had a good laugh for sure. So but overall, like, the event was really, really impactful. One of like the highest highs from the event was listening to Jamie Kern Lima speak. So Jamie is the founder of It Cosmetics. If you've never heard of it, it's like a huge beauty brand, so big that she actually sold it for $1.2 billion to L'Oreal. She also held the title of CEO. She was the first CEO in L'Oreal's history of like 100 and some years. Like, that is crazy insane. But she is also like a genuinely kind-hearted person. She is so just like, in her book. So I read her book last year, Believe It. And this was after like my job transition, and I was doing like a lot of like self-discovery and self-improvement last year, always every year. Okay. But specifically like last spring, it was hitting me pretty hard. And it's crazy to think that's only been a year, because I feel like I've done so much, and yet like also like there's still so much to still be done. But I actually listened to her audiobook, and I love listening to biographies and memoirs from the writer's voice. I love hearing it. I love hearing the emphasis that they put on certain words or sentences, or the emotion that they carry in their voice, because they lived it. It's their story. And so I always like gravitate to listen to an audiobook. And it just so happens I listened to Jamie's Believe It last Christmas. And I sobbed. I cried. It was such an amazing story, but also like a lot about her childhood and her public perception, like how people were perceiving her, and the thing that like people said about like her appearance or her weight. And it was just honestly like very impactful. And I saw like such like I can see myself in parts of her story, right? And so I loved it. And then she just came out with the second book, and it came out in, I want to say February. I had pre-ordered the book, got the book in the mail, and it's called Worthy. And I actually have not hadn't read it. So I started August 1st, right? I want to read before bed. That's part of my goal. Read a physical book before bed. And I pulled Believe It off the shelf. No, I'm sorry. That's her first one. Pulled Worthy off the shelf. And I was like, this will be perfect, because I'm going to see her speak in a week or so. And I got about halfway through, and it's a really The first one was more her story, and while that's like about her, it's still like applicable to a lot of people's lives. This one was still about her in a way and her story, but it was like more geared to like filling our cup, like filling the reader's cup as they were like navigating through the pages. And like I said, I'm only halfway through it, but she ended up gifting some of like the VIP members got like gifted the book, and so I got a second copy of the book. And I remember last year with Amy Porterfield, we had gotten her book, and I already had a copy of her book, and I ended up gifting it to a friend. So I'm excited to do that this year again with the Worthy book. But a book and a like audiobook are impactful, right? Like if you cannot see a person in person, like in the physicality, having a book or an audiobook is second best, right? Like you could hear their voice and their likeness and how they're speaking and what they're doing. One step further from that is like them public speaking on a stage. And I got to this conference, so there's 2 days. The first day is like, it's like their VIP day. It is like an extension. I ended up winning, there was like 10 tickets available for like VIP that, if you purchase the like program within like a certain period of time, then you would be able to like, the first 10 got like the free VIP, which I went to the VIP and paid for it last year, and this year I actually like won that ticket and I qualified for the free VIP night, so I was really happy about that. So but that is like more chill. It's hanging out, you're in your pajamas, you're having mocktails or maybe a drink and talking with people, and like there's icebreakers, and it's a lot of fun. Day 2 starts at 8:30 is when like the doors officially open, but the speakers don't start until 10. So I got to the resort at 7 a.m. I wanted to make sure that I was as close as possible to the stage, because in May, when I went to the Dear Media, I was in front row, front and center. Like I felt like when you are that close to the stage, you forget that there's like people behind you, right? Like you forget that there is a whole room, and there's 800 people who went to Powerhouse Women this past weekend. I do not know the count for Dear Media, but I was in the front row, dead center. And I remember looking up at these podcasters, right? Like the toast, like Claudia Oshry and Jackie. Like I listened to their podcast, and here they are like in the flesh, so close to me, right? Like if I was a weirdo, I could have like jumped on stage and like tackled them, right? Like that's how close they were. Luckily I'm not a weirdo, but it was crazy to know that they are people, right? Like they're just a person who worked really hard and got to where they are. And it makes me think that like my goals are achievable, because if they can do it, I can do it. If they're, a real person, I am also a real person, right? So I wanted to be as close as possible to the stage this year for Powerhouse. Last year I was like, 12 rows back, and that was good. It was great. But I wanted to be closer this year, especially from experiencing it being so close at the Dear Media podcast thing. I wanted to be as close as possible. So I got there at 7. I grabbed a coffee, commercial coffee, if you will. It was not bad. I got a shaken espresso. That's like the closest thing to what I have at home. It was iced. It was good. No syrup, no, nothing like that. Just, espresso and milk and ice. It was better than the hotel coffee, right? So I have my coffee, and I'm feeling like so jittery, so excited though. And the doors opened at like 8:35. We get in there. I get a seat in the second row, but in the middle, I'm in the middle of the stage, second row, second seat. So it's like first row, second row, and I'm one in from the aisle, and I have like a perfect view. The people in front, the girl in front was like really short, so it's like perfect. I can see over her head. I can get so much content. Like I can pretend she's not even there, right? And to see Jamie on stage, so impactful. To see Lori Harder on stage, so impactful. To see, and this was a new one that I had not heard of her content, but it's Cupcake Mafia, and her story, I forget her name, that is her business name, and she actually was so inspiring, and her story, like, can you imagine being this? Okay. Her story includes that she was fired from a company that she founded, and as she was explaining this, she was like, yeah, so I didn't know what to do. I was like looking for lawyers in the area, and I just Googled, I was like, people who have been fired from the company they built, trying to see who I could call, who I could ask, like I'm looking for like what the next steps are. And she's like, the first person that popped up was Steve Jobs. And she's like, obviously I can't call Steve Jobs up. So she had to figure it out. And she did end up getting her company back, being able to buy her company back. But her story was so inspiring, so crazy cool. But all the speakers, right? Like they had something to add to the table. And to see Jamie, someone who I've watched on social media for the past 4 years, right? Like I definitely have always been into personal development, but I didn't really do any, well, I've talked about it before, my the YouTube inspirational speeches that I used to listen to in high school, but other than that, like not really. Like I wasn't reading books about it. I wasn't doing those things, and it wasn't until like my senior year, right? Like graduating. And so the last couple years I've been able to like absorb and just like watch what she's been doing. And it's crazy because it seems so far away when you are like listening to someone or someone having like a huge story like this. Like I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like $1.2 billion. The brain in this woman's head is so smart. She is so driven, right? And she is also like just really down to earth and sweet. Even further than that, than watching her on stage and share her story with her keynote speech, it was so impactful, so inspiring. But even more than that, I got to meet and talk to Jamie. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. So during lunch there was like a line, and it's like, yep, like if you want your book signed by Jamie, you can come over here. I hadn't eaten that morning and I had that coffee. So I was like, I'm going to pound down the sandwich and then I'm going to get in line. I want my book signed. And so I'm standing in line with my new friend, Juliet. She was one of the girls who had came to Powerhouse, and I'm standing in line. I'm like, okay, like the line was not moving. It was not moving. And I realized it's because she was talking to each person so deeply. She was having a conversation with each one. And that's so amazing. That's so great, right? I was so nervous I was going to get cut off. Like last year when I went to Dear Media and I went to meet not Lori Harder. I did meet Lori Harder last year, but Lauren Bostic. I wanted to like meet her because she was one of my very, very first podcasts I ever listened to, this Getting Confidential. I started listening to her in like 2017, 2018 is when I first started listening to her podcast. And so she is one of my OG, like super people. So I wanted to take a photo with her so bad. So I was like trying to make sure that I was in front of the line, and I kid you not, like for Lauren Bostic, it was like 5 people behind me cut off. She had to be done. I was so happy I made the cutoff, and I did not want that to happen with like Jamie. So I got to talk to Jamie, and just like seeing her, and she's so sweet and she's so present with you. You would think that someone who has like achieved so much in her life would like not take the time to like get to know you. And of course I was quick. I always get like so conscientious of like making sure that as many people get to meet her as possible. And I felt like such a goon because I was like, I gave her a hug. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. And I was like, honestly, like just, I don't want to cry. Oh my gosh. Like she is just really, really sweet. And I will like cherish that so much. Right. And just like her being a huge inspiration. So not only was like her speech so impactful, and like me thinking about like how I was feeling last year and like what I was going through last December, and like listening to her voice, like I can remember like certain moments of like her speech that she was sharing. Like there was sections in her book obviously that correlated with that. And so hearing her story in person, I kid you not, I kept bawling, crying. I could not stop. And of course I'm in the second row, middle of the stage, so I know that I'm sure she can see me just like bawling, and it's fine. But I absolutely adore her, and it was so great, and it was so amazing. And that was my absolute peak of the week, being able to just like be in the presence of someone that I hold in such high regard. And I think about life, and I think about like the opportunities that we're presented with, and essentially like this conference, while it is like a money, right? Like it is a transaction of energy. I went last year, and it was like something that I really pushed myself to do. I signed up back in like April, it was before this. It was like March, because I signed up for the one in May for Dear Media, and then I signed up for the one in August. And I remember like telling myself, I'm signing up for all of these things. I'm like spending this money. I want to like pour into myself, and to do this, like I'm going to have to like make a hard decision and like quit the job that I was at, to be able to like make it to these events, because we had like so many weddings and there's so many things happening. I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to ask for all the time off, and if I wanted to do it, like I had to be so intentional. And so last year when I went, I also like wanted more community. And that's why like I have a podcast. That's why I have like my meetup group. I had just felt like so alone right out of college, and like feeling like I didn't have those female friendships or like girlfriends that I could talk to or like have fun with, right? And so I ended up like signing up for their course, which was really amazing. And there were so many women that I met through that course. They still have like relationships with Day. Shout out to Megan Henderson. Okay, I love this girl. She has she has a calligraphy shop, and then she also does website design. It's called Southern Scribble. She is the sweetest girl ever. I was so happy to see her this year again. And it's also crazy because social media, you think, oh, it's like this this horrible place, right? Like people talk about social media being like bad and it's like so toxic. But the last year I've got to watch some really amazing women with their stories and like seeing them grow in their aspirations and what they're wanting to do. And so like Megan was one of them, where I was like, I've seen you grow so much in the past year. Julia was another one. Like Julia is a hairdresser in Ohio, and she has like just fabulous page, and I've watched her all year long. And so like having that community literally meant the world to me. And with that, because like I was saying, I qualified for the VIP night, I actually got my ticket for free, like both tickets for free this year. So it's like I want to say it's like $500 for the ticket to go to the event, and then I'm not sure if that's $500 with the VIP. I think VIP might be like another $150 or something like that. Like it is a lot of money, And I, like this year, because my ticket was free, I only had to pay for, I actually had flight credit too from last December. So I had flight credit, I had a free ticket, and all I really had to do was pay for my hotel, and I had points for that. So this trip was essentially like so budget friendly for me. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like when in my life, and if you think about like the caliber of like Jamie Kern Lima, or any of the other speakers like Lindsay Schwartz, the founder of Powerhouse Women, or Lori Harder, like I'm thinking about these women, and they have like so many different programs, and they speak at so many different places, but like this is an intimate area where I'm able to literally meet them if I want. Like Amy Porterfield, like last year, like I was able to meet with her, and she like signed my book, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like how important is it to know people, right? Like when we think of networking, we think of like jobs, and we think back to high school. They were like, oh, get your LinkedIn, like you need to have a resume, you need to network. And we think about networking for a job, but we don't think of networking for like connection with other humans. A network of, this person might be able to align me with the best person to cut my hair or to provide a service, right? Garrett, this past, I don't know, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, he was needing to find someone to like roof. Well, he, is going to ask his second cousin from Carrollton's dad to repair the roof. Like that's networking, to be able to like find that perfect fit for the job and be able to support someone else, right? Like, yes, it's like a friend who's able to do like really good work. You trust them, and they're going to be able to like execute it and like build that connection deeper. So when I'm thinking about like networking, and I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, like the people you surround, oh my gosh, this was crazy. Okay. I do not have my notebook. It's still in my suitcase. I've not unpacked, but there was a doctor there. And I cannot remember her name, but she was so smart, so educated. She said, and this blew my mind, oh my gosh, apparently, according to scientists, your gut microbiome is similar to the people that you surround yourself with. So similar that if you had a twin, the person you spend more time with, like your spouse, your gut microbiome would be more similar to a spouse or a roommate or even one of your best friends that you see consistently in comparison to a twin. Are you kidding me? That is insane. That is so crazy. And so it really and truly is the people you surround yourself with, you become more like. I thought it was just mannerisms. I thought it was just personality. But no, on a gut microbiome level, you are more similar to that person. And if you hang out with people who are healthy, who work out, who treat their body right, like you are getting some of their micro gut biome in comparison to someone who doesn't work out or, maybe has different things that they do, right? You and their gut microbiome is not as healthy. Like you are getting some of that. And so when I'm looking at networking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like the people you surround yourself with, not only for mannerisms, but also on a health level, on a cellular level. And that literally blew my mind. And she said this thing, it was like, so if you're wanting to distance yourself from like a friend you no longer align with, say it's bad for, I'm trusting my gut. It's bad for my gut, right? Like, cause we align our gut and our intuition together. And so she's like, just say it's bad for your gut. Sorry, it's bad for my gut. We can't hang out. Right. And I was just like, wow, that is truly insane. And so if we're thinking about like the gut microbiome, like I literally, not to be weird, but like I breathe the same space as Jamie Kern Lima. I give her a hug, not once, but she hugged me twice. I was very happy about that. And I have the photo to prove it, right? So I want to say, with that contact, I know it's going to sound gross, so I'm so sorry. But like, as I hugged her, like I breathed in the air around her, right? And she breathed in a little bit of me. So that might sound weird, but like I might have gotten a little bit of her gut microbiome. That's gross, but it happens, right? Like that is just like a normal day and part of your life. So when I'm thinking about like what I'm doing with my time, how I'm spending my time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this weekend, even though it like took out of my like daily routine, it was still so impactful. And I got to like strengthen my gut health, take this solo trip and do all the things by myself. And although like I didn't get a vlog up, I will say I still got 10K steps every day. I've never done this, but at the hotel room, after my day ended, I like looked at my watch and I was like at 8,000. I was like, I'm going down to the gym treadmill and I'm going to walk the rest of my mileage. And I have never done that. I've never used a hotel gym, especially to get steps in. Like it was such a truly like mind-blowing event. I was like, I am changing my identity. I am walking on this treadmill. I am getting my steps in because for my goals, it was like 10K or bust. Like it's only 31 days in August. After the 31 days, you can decide if you want to continue or not. And I was like, oof, I got it. Good job. Good job. So this weekend was more impactful in like more ways than I could have ever imagined. And I'm just so thankful to have spent that time. I will definitely like reflect some more and I have like other thoughts to give, but this is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all of the things, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.